How many of you like to read? Figured out all your hands would go up. How many of you heard of the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Ogmandino? Okay. Well, that's my story today. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, most welcome guests. The book begins in biblical times, and Hafid is known as the greatest salesman in the world. Hafid has reached the end of his career. He's an old man, and he's looking for somebody to pass his legacy to. Ahmed is nothing but a young man who's the camel boy for Hafid. And Ahmed has great desires because he's fallen deeply in love with Hafid's daughter. That always creates for interesting stories. But Ahmed isn't sure how he can approach his master. But on this one night, it's a cold, crisp, dark night in the desert in Hafid's mansion. And the stars in the sky are just magnificent. As a matter of fact, Hafid is somewhat of an astrologer, and he sees this very bright star that seems to be getting brighter and brighter. So I know something's going to happen, but he doesn't know what. Ahmed finally gets the courage today, this day, to ask Hafid if he could become a salesman in his great organization. Now Hafid is what we would call a billionaire today. He has storehouses full of merchandise, garments of the finest quality, food, wine from just the best farms around. He has fragrances from all over the world, gold, silver, diamonds, and jewels. And he looks at Ahmed. He thinks, well, you're just a camel boy. But Ahmed has desire and determination. He's going to do something with his life. So he gives him a chance. He summons his servant and says, bring me one of my finest robes. The servant comes back with this beautiful red robe of the finest quality, probably 1 million thread count, wool, and it has the mark of Hafid's guild, a circle within a square. He gives the robe to Ahmed. He gives him about a week's worth of expense money and says, go into town and let's see what you can do. So Ahmed's excited. He gets up early in the morning, he leaves, he goes into town. Hafid is watching him in the early darkness of the morning. He sees that the stars becoming brighter and brighter, so it's almost like daytime in the evening. Ahmed goes into town and he starts selling. He is really pumped. He's going to sell that robe, come back and show him that he's a worthy son-in-law. Day number 1. How many of you are in sales? Okay, you know what happens. Rejection, rejection, rejection. At the end of the day, he is discouraged. The second day, more of the same. The third day, more of the same. The fourth day, more of the same. And finally, the evening of the fourth day, he is exhausted. He spent almost all of his money. He still has the robe. And he finds the only place that he can spend the night. It's a barn. So he takes his robe, he walks into this barn, and to his surprise, there's somebody else in the barn. A young couple and a brand new baby. This baby is half naked, shivering in the cold. He looks at the robe, he looks at the family, he looks at the robe, and he's thinking to himself, Hafid's going to kill me. He takes the robe and he gives it to the family. They wrap the baby up in this robe. A little bit later, he falls soundly asleep. Wakes up in the morning, and reality strikes. Oh no. I'm going to have to go back and tell Hafid what I've done. I spent all this money, and I gave the robe away. So he procrastinates all day long. He doesn't want to go back. But finally in the afternoon, he heads back towards Hafid's palace. And Hafid sees him, in the early evening, walking in towards the palace. He sees that he doesn't have the robe. That's a good sign. But he also notices that the heavens have changed. The star that showed brightly over everything now is like a focused beam on Ahmed as he walks back to the palace. Hafid welcomes him and said, "Well, how did you do?" He said, "Master, I've failed." He looks at him kind of strangely and he says, "Tell me what happened." So Ahmed tells him the whole story, how he spent day after day after day without success, and then he says, "Master, I'll work for you 10, 20 years because that's how long it'll take to pay off your expenses in the road." Hafid looks at him with his piercing gaze for a minute, and then he summons his servant. He says, "Go bring me my treasure chest." Ahmed's a little bit struck, but the servant does his bidding, comes back with this worn out wooden chest. And Hafid says to Ahmed, "This is my treasure. Everyone thinks it's diamond, gold, jewelry. It's not." He says, "In this chest are 12 scrolls. These scrolls are the secrets to my success in life and in business. I want you to go into the tower, take this with you, open the first scroll and the first scroll only. Read it, and then once you've read it, take out the second and do the same." Isn't it interesting that we all think that successful people, their most important items are their possessions, as opposed to perhaps their philosophy or what made them great in terms of their theology, their philosophy, whatever it might be. Fast forward 30 years. Ahmed is now the greatest salesman in the world. Achieved all of his dreams. Married the boss's daughter. Has unlimited wealth. More so than Hafid did. But now it's time for Ahmed to pass on the title of the greatest salesman in the world. And he's been waiting for a while. This one day, it's a very hot, sunny day, typical of the desert. You can see the heat rising off of the sand. Off in the distance, you see a lone stranger walking towards the palace. He asks for one of the servants to get him something to drink. Ahmed sees this, brings him in, offers him not only drink, but food, and they talk. And as Ahmed is looking at this man, he notices a garment. He's thinking, could it be? And here is a red robe, probably 30 years older, but he notices the mark of Hafid, his boss, on that robe, the red circle within the square. He asks the guy his name. He says, "My name is Peter." He says, "Peter, where did you come upon this robe?" He said, "This robe was from my master, Jesus." Ahmed stops, calls the servant over, and says, "Fetch me the box." This is how the greatest salesman in the world becomes the greatest salesman in the world. His legacy continues. And isn't it interesting that in that exchange, the way I read the book, you have different cultures and different religions passing the secrets from one to the next. I hope that if you haven't read The Greatest Secret or The Greatest Salesman in the World by Ahmed Dino, that you read it. It's a tremendous book, and it caused me to read as an adult. Now, Toastmaster.